Gary woke up at 3 in the morning, sure he'd broken his toe in his sleep. Nothing had touched it. Then he spent 4 years rebuilding his diet. No red meat, no shellfish, cherry juice every morning. He still had 4 attacks a year, because what stops attacks isn't on the food list. It's one number, on one blood test, and most people with gout have never been told it. 7 questions. I'll give you the number in the 4th. I spent years as an emergency physician, and gout came through my doors constantly, almost always at 2 or 3 in the morning, almost always somebody who could not tolerate the weight of a bedsheet on one foot. And nearly every one of them asked me some version of the same 7 questions. Nobody had ever answered them straight. Gary is 62, retired out of a plant outside Pittsburgh. Those 7 questions are his. They're probably yours too. So here they are, in the order people actually ask them. Question 1. Was it something I ate last night? This is always the first question. It is also the single most expensive wrong idea in this entire disease. Here's what's actually happening. Uric acid is a waste product. Your body makes it when it breaks down purines, material from the cells in your food, and, more than most people realize, from your own cells being recycled every day. Your kidneys are supposed to flush the waste out. When more comes in than goes out, the level in your blood climbs. But crystals do not form overnight from a steak. They form over years. And then they sit in the joint, quiet, sometimes for a very long time before anything ever hurts. So what actually sets off the attack? Usually a change in the level. Not a high level, a change. When your urate swings, crystals that were sitting there stable get destabilized. They shed fragments. Your immune system finds those fragments, doesn't recognize them, and goes to war on your toe. That war is the flare. The pain isn't the crystals. The pain is your own immune system. And here is the part that catches everybody. The swing works in either direction, up or down, which is why a heavy weekend can trigger a flare. And why stay with me? Because this is question 5. Starting the one drug that actually fixes gout can trigger one too. So when Gary spent that Friday night going back over what he'd eaten, hunting for the culprit, he was auditing the wrong thing. Dinner didn't build the crystals, dinner just rattled them. Question 2. How do I know it's even gout? This one matters more than any food on any list, and I'm going to be very direct, because this is the part where people actually get hurt. Gout has a signature. It arrives fast hours, not days. 0 to unbearable overnight. It's usually one joint, usually the base of the big toe, and the pain is wildly out of proportion to how the joint looks. People tell me they couldn't get a sock on. Pain that ramps up gradually over a couple of weeks is usually something else. Both feet at once is usually something else. But there is one thing that looks almost exactly like gout, is not gout, and is the reason I'm putting this second instead of burying it at the end. A septic joint, a joint infection. Hot, swollen, exquisitely painful, same picture, same joint, same night. But add a fever, or shaking chills, or just feeling genuinely, systemically sick. Now you are not in a gout conversation anymore. A septic joint destroys cartilage in days, not months, days. It's one of the few problems in medicine where the clock runs in hours, and the treatment is draining that joint and IV antibiotics, not a pill from your medicine cabinet, and not waiting until Monday. So here is the ladder. I want you to actually use it. Same pattern as your usual flare. No fever. And you already have a plan from your doctor. Treat it. Write it down. Bring the log to your next visit. First time this has ever happened or you're just not sure, get on your primary care doctor's schedule this week, not next month. Hot swollen joint plus fever, plus chills, plus feeling sick. That's a today problem. Urgent care can start it if you can be seen right now. But if that joint is severe, or it's a knee, or a hip, or you're on chemotherapy or steroids, or you have diabetes, go to the ER. Now, and if you're confused, unsteady on your feet, or that fever has you feeling like you're crashing, call 911. Don't drive yourself. I know what an ER visit costs in this country, and I know that's exactly why people sit at home and wait. So let me say it plainly. Getting checked for a septic joint and sent home with gout is a good outcome. That's not wasting anybody's time. That's the system doing the one thing it's actually good at. Question 3. Does the food list actually work? Now we're at the thing this entire genre is built on. I'm going to give you the honest answer instead of the popular one. The American College of Rheumatology writes the guideline that American doctors actually use for gout. The current one landed in 2020, and it does address food. It conditionally recommends limiting alcohol. It conditionally recommends limiting purines. It conditionally recommends limiting high fructose corn syrup. That word conditionally is carrying an enormous amount of weight. In guideline language, conditional means reasonable, probably worth doing, but the evidence isn't strong enough for us to tell you to do it. And then the same guideline says the part nobody ever quotes. It notes plainly that the evidence that dietary restriction lowers urate is limited. In one trial, teaching gout patients how to eat a low-purine diet improved their knowledge of low-purine diets and did not lower their uric acid. Read that again. The education worked. The uric acid didn't move. Now, Gary pushed back on me right here, and some of you are pushing back right now. This sounds like a doctor telling me food doesn't matter, so I'll just take a pill. That's not what I'm saying. Food matters. Cutting liquid sugar, moderating alcohol, dropping some weight if you're carrying it, those are real, and they're good for your heart and your kidneys, whether or not your toe ever hurts again. But they are a modest lever. Diet moves urate by a fraction of what it usually needs to move. If your level needs to come down 2 full points, food is not going to take you there. And every year you spend believing it will is another year of crystals quietly accumulating in a joint that is eroding while you wait. That's the belief I most want to take away from you today. Not food doesn't matter. It's this. Food is not the main lever, and treating it like the main lever is precisely why you are still having attacks after 4 years of doing everything you were told. Question 4. Then, what actually stops it? Here's the number. 6.0 milligrams per deciliter. Serum urate, below 6. That's the treat-to-target number in the American guideline, and it isn't arbitrary. Uric acid dissolves in your blood up to a saturation point of roughly 6.8 milligrams per deciliter. Think about salt in a glass of water. Below the saturation point, it stays dissolved and invisible. Above it, it comes out of solution and becomes a solid. Your joints cool and far from your core are the cold end of that glass. That's why it's your toe and not your shoulder. So get the number under 6, and you're not just preventing new crystals from forming. You are now underneath the line where the crystals you already have can hold themselves together. They dissolve, slowly over months, over years, but they dissolve. That is the part almost nobody gets told. Gout is one of the very few kinds of arthritis that is genuinely reversible, and the thing that reverses it is a number held under 6 over time. So how do you get there? For most people, allopurinol. The guideline strongly recommends it, strongly, not conditionally, as the first-line urate-lowering therapy, including for people with moderate to severe kidney disease. And it's indicated once you're having 2 or more flares a year. That's the trigger. 2. But here's where it goes wrong, and this is the actual point of this video. Allopurinol is not a one-and-done prescription. You start low. You recheck the number in a few weeks. You go up, you recheck. You keep going until the number is under 6. That's what treat to target means. Check, adjust, check again. And across the studies, only about 1/3 of people taking urate-lowering therapy ever actually reach that target. Not a third of gout patients. A third of the ones already swallowing the pill every morning. The prescription got written. The number never got chased. So if you take one thing out of this video, take this. Don't ask yourself, am I on the pill? Ask, what is my number? And is it under 6? Write it down. If nobody has ever spoken a number to you, not your uric acid is a little high, an actual number, then that is the conversation that changes your next 10 years. And one more thing, because this is America and cost is a real barrier, not a rude one. Allopurinol is one of the cheapest generic drugs in this country, commonly $3 to $15 for a month's supply with a discount card. The thing that fixes this disease is not the expensive part. The expensive part is 4 attacks a year for a decade, and the joint damage waiting at the end of them. Question 5. It gave me a flare. Should I quit? Almost everybody who starts allopurinol asks me this, and it is the most dangerous moment in the entire disease. Because yes, starting allopurinol can trigger a flare. It often does in the first weeks or months, and I know exactly how that lands. You took a pill for gout and got gout. So you throw the bottle in the trash and you tell people it didn't work. Go back to question 1. Flares are triggered by a change in the level, and allopurinol's entire job is to change the level. As your urate falls, the old deposits start dissolving at their edges and shedding fragments your immune system has never met before. Picture a snowbank in March. It doesn't vanish evenly. It melts at the edges, and pieces break loose. Which means the flare is not the drug failing, the flare is the drug working. That's a strange sentence. It's also true, and it's the reason an enormous number of people quit the one thing that would have fixed them. Which is exactly why the guideline strongly recommends anti-inflammatory prophylaxis when you start. A low-dose cover, typically colchicine, or an anti-inflammatory for at least 3 to 6 months. That's the window. That's the whole window. Get through it, and the flares don't just quiet down. They end because the crystals are gone. Now, I am never going to tell you to start, stop, or change a prescription from a video. That's between you and your doctor, and there are real reasons a given drug isn't right for a given person. What I'm telling you is what to ask. If we start this, are we covering me for the first few months? That one question is the difference between finishing this and abandoning it in the parking lot. And here's why it matters at scale. Adherence to urate-lowering therapy runs under 50%, among the worst of any medication for any chronic disease in medicine. Not because it's expensive, not because it's hard to swallow, in large part because nobody warned people about the window. Question 6. What about cherries, vitamin C, and my beer? 3 honest answers, quickly. Vitamin C first, because this is the one the internet is most confident about and most wrong about. You'll find 100 articles telling you vitamin C lowers uric acid. The 2020 guideline conditionally recommends against taking it for gout because when it was actually tested, the change in serum urate was too small to mean anything clinically. It doesn't get you to 6. It doesn't get you near 6. If you're taking vitamin C for your gout, you're taking it for nothing. Cherries. I'll be honest with you, the evidence is thin, and it isn't the kind you'd bet a joint on. If you like cherries, eat cherries. They are not a treatment, and 4 years of cherry juice is 4 years. Now beer. This one I want you to actually hear. Higher alcohol intake, especially heavy drinking, is associated with up to 51% higher risk of gout flares. 51%. And here's the clause that makes it interesting. The one that almost never gets repeated. That holds even in people already on urate-lowering therapy. The pill does not buy you a pass. Alcohol pushes urate production up and blunts how much your kidneys can clear at the same time. More coming in and a squeeze on the drain. And while we're here, this is the one honest reason to single out soda and juice rather than lumping them in with carbs. Fructose is the only carbohydrate known to raise uric acid, And the mechanism is very specific. Your liver grabs fructose and phosphorylates it fast, with no break on the process. It burns through ATP, the energy currency inside your cells, faster than the cell can rebuild it. The debris left over from that burn is purine. And purine breaks down into uric acid. Bread doesn't do that. A large soda does. Which is why cut carbs is lazy advice, and cut liquid sugar is good advice. They are not the same instruction, and only one of them is about your gout. Question 7. Why does my doctor keep asking about my kidneys? Because gout is not a foot problem. The foot is just where you find out about it. Gout travels with company: chronic kidney disease, high blood pressure, and metabolic syndrome. And the kidney link is not subtle. Among Americans with normal kidney filtration, gout runs around 3%. Among people whose filtration has dropped to GFR under 60, it's about 24%, roughly 8 times. Your kidneys are the drain. When the drain slows, the level rises. That's the entire mechanism, and it's why a rheumatologist looks at your toe and immediately asks about your kidneys. So the toe is a warning light. What it's often lit up about is the plumbing upstream. And here's the piece I most want you carrying into your next appointment. Some blood pressure medications raise uric acid. Thiazide diuretics. Hydrochlorothiazide is the common one. Work by making your kidneys hold on to less water. As a side effect, your kidneys hold on to more urate. The guideline conditionally recommends switching to something else when that's feasible, and conditionally recommends losartan preferentially, because losartan happens to push urate out instead of holding it in. Now hear me very carefully, because this is the sentence people misuse. That is a conversation to have with your doctor. It is not a reason to stop a blood pressure pill. Your blood pressure medication is preventing a stroke. Gout hurts like nothing else. A stroke takes your house, your car, and your independence. Do not trade one for the other on your own. From a video including this one. Take the sentence to your primary care doctor and let them decide whether it applies to you. Let me bring this together, because 7 questions is a lot to carry out of a room. Group them into 3. What to stop believing? That last night's dinner built this, and that the food list will fix it. Flares come from a change in the level. The list is real, and the list is small. What to start? The number, 6.0. 2 or more flares a year means it's time to talk about urate-lowering therapy, allopurinol first. Started low, rechecked, adjusted until you're under 6, and covered with prophylaxis through the first 3 to 6 months so you don't quit during the exact window where it's working. What to monitor? A hot joint with a fever is not gout until somebody proves it. And your kidneys and your blood pressure are part of this disease, not a separate one. If you remember one thing, remember this. Gout is the only common arthritis you can actually dissolve, but it does not dissolve because of what's on your plate. It dissolves because a number stayed under 6 long enough. So here's your one step, and it costs you nothing. Find out your number. Call your doctor's office and ask 2 questions. What was my last serum uric acid, and what's my target? If you're on Medicare, that annual wellness visit is free, no copay, no deductible. Bring it there. Write the number on a piece of paper and stick it on the refrigerator, because a number on the refrigerator gets chased and a number in a chart does not. Gary's was 8.4. 2 years later, it's 5.1. He hasn't had an attack since that first winter, and he still eats shellfish. And if you know somebody who's been white-knuckling this with cherry juice for years, send them question 4. That's the one that changes things.